Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio TV. This is your host James, and I'm super excited to be on the call with my co-host today. We're talking Hilary Raimo. We're talking to author Simon Chokoisky. We are going to talk about his latest book, Sex, Love and Dharma. And a little bit about Simon before I bring him on. He teaches Sanskrit and medical astrology at the Ayurvedic Institute in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He also runs a private consulting business based on the trainings in Vedic life mapping and Vedic astrology. The author of 5 Dharma Types and creator of the Decoding Your Life Map with Vedic Astrology DVD series. He travels widely giving seminars. He lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he's joined with us on the call as we speak. You can follow along with today's author at spirittype.com. You can check out his other work there and speaking events and blog posts and everything else. So without further ado, I'll talk to Hilary first. Hi, Hilary. Great to see you again.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited about today's show. We're going to be talking about partnerships, compatibility, and a lot more. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, who doesn't apply today? What part of the audience does not apply today, Hilary, eh?
Right? Everybody can get something out of the show. I predict it. Absolutely.
For sure. Well, let's get going. Hey, Simon, first of all, welcome to the call. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to see you. And I've done some shows on Sanskrit, mostly on historical mysteries and Vedic mysteries and stuff like that, and the Upanishads. And so it's different to do something on this today. I just think the Sanskrit writings and the whole philosophy and history, as I should say, it's just a wonderful teaching. It's something that I think a lot of people should embrace more. I guess, first of all, tell us how you got into this, Simon. Tell us about we'll get into the book and stuff, but tell us about how you got into Sanskrit teachings, first of all.
Well, it's a good question. It's a long question. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Graham Hancock is fond of saying that we are a culture with amnesia, and in the sense that we have forgotten about our roots, our past traditions. And what I found, in short, was that the Vedic tradition of India, and to this day, India continues to preserve a lot of our ancient history. And ancient, I mean, over 5,000 years. Mm. And Sanskrit is the language in which that history is preserved. And there are 2 versions of Sanskrit. There is something called classical Sanskrit and Vedic Sanskrit. And the classical, it doesn't sound like it would be, but it's the more modern Sanskrit. And then Vedic Sanskrit is even more ancient, dating back even further into antiquity. And the way I got into it is I went to study with a teacher, and I went to study other topics. I wanted to study Ayurveda, which is holistic healing. I wanted to study astrology and the effects of the planet on people, on, Celtic United and whether they'll win or not, on, a whole host of things. And the first thing he told me was, well, to learn this stuff, you need to know Sanskrit. And I thought, I don't want to learn Sanskrit. I want to learn the other stuff. And he said, well, what else do you want to study? Meaning that it's not going to happen for you if you don't learn Sanskrit. So I tried a few other things, and the answer was always, you have to learn Sanskrit. You have to learn Sanskrit. So that's what we ended up doing for a few years. And I'm by no means an expert or a conversational in Sanskrit. I know enough to be dangerous, let's say. But that led me down a whole nother path to where now, for the past 5 years, I was teaching students Sanskrit at the Ayurvedic Institute, which is a healing institution. And medical students, for example, in the West don't realize this when they go into med school, but they're going to be learning Latin and some Greek, because the body part, this is the humerus, the biceps, these are Latin names. Gynecology, that's a Greek word. So a lot of med students don't realize that they're learning another language as part of their studies. So I ended up learning Sanskrit and then teaching to medical students who study the Vedic system of holistic healing called Ayurveda, because most of the terminology is in Sanskrit. So I told you this would be kind of a long answer, so there you go.
Oh,
interesting. And
this is
the Cliff Notes version.
Wow.
So you learned Sanskrit based on what you needed to understand in further research for yourself? Is that correct?
Correct, because most of these teachings that are preserved, as I mentioned earlier, from ancient cultures are still in Sanskrit, and many of them are still untranslated. Of course, a good, over the last 100 years, people have done a lot of translation, but it is said that there is more spiritual literature in Sanskrit than there is in all of the other world's traditions combined. So, and this is true because there is such a huge volume of work, Upanishads, Vedas, Puranas, in Sanskrit that just dwarfs any other tradition. And, that's what India is known for. It's not known necessarily, at least in these days, for its sort of modern technology and such. It's known for its ancient technology. And its ability to preserve that for even to this day.
So did you speak Indian before you started Sanskrit? How long did it take you to learn Sanskrit? Because I've studied it and it's very difficult. It was for me anyway, the basics.
Well, first of all, you have to learn another alphabet, right? And you start with that. So that takes a few weeks just by itself. We don't realize that if you're going to learn French or Italian, you're using the same alphabet, right? Or Spanish. It's still the same Roman alphabet. For Sanskrit, and you have to learn another script, I should say. And there are over 30 official languages in India. So India actually, if you can imagine every state in the U.S. having its own language, that's kind of like what it is in India. So there's Hindi in the north, there's Gujarati in the north, there's Malayalam in the south, Kannada in the south as well. There's a whole host, Tamil in the South India. There's a whole host of languages within India itself. So there's no such thing as Indian. But, and even then, Sanskrit is ancient to them as well. So many people in India don't speak or understand Sanskrit much.
What's your nationality, Simon? What's your background?
I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, but there is... My family is from Eastern Europe, and I guess one of the reasons I found it easier to learn a language is because people who speak, who are bilingual early on can pick up different languages.
Nice.
Wow. Well, they also say that people who are bilingual also are better at math as well and other problem-solving things. I don't know about that.
I don't know about the math part. I did okay in high school, but that was
Well,
it.
not everybody, but they say that their brain thinks in different ways, or even in other problem-solving skills, that because they think in languages in two ways, they think in problem-solving in two ways. So that might be, they think about a mathematical problem in another solution or another way.
It's possible. Of course, I don't have any reference to be able to test that.
Sure. Okay, so the book is broken down into sex, love, and Dharma in 3 sections. And I guess with Dharma, tell us what the word Dharma means or the origins of Dharma. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so since we're talking about Sanskrit, we can really geek out on this today. And,
for sure, bro.
And the word Dharma is the root of it is drid, or dru, D-H-R. And that root in Sanskrit is the root for our word in English, truth. It's the root for the word betrothed. Even the words, this is a little bit of a further stretch, but the words druid, tree, the word throne are all directly related to that root, dr, which dr means something which is fixed, something which is established as real, as reality. And the word farm also comes from that. And so dharma is the reality of your being, who you are. And in Sanskrit or in the Vedic philosophy, it is said that every person is born with a purpose, with a mission, and that is their essence. And dharma means living up to that reality, that essence of who you are. And in the Bhagavad Gita, which is this text in famous text like the It's like part of the New Testament for India. It says that it's better to be bad at what you do than good at what is bad for you. Meaning, it's better to be bad at your own dharma and be a dharma bum, so to speak, than to fake it. And then, you're not supposed to be a salesperson, but you go into sales. And you kind of, hey, how you doing? Hey, can I interest you in some of this? But it's not who you are. And they say that creates more problems than being bad at your own dharma. So more health problems for yourself and problems in your environment. And if you've ever seen a Coen Brothers movie, like No Country for Old Men or any of their sort of movies, everything starts with a little bit of dharma, which is the opposite of dharma. Somebody makes a little mistake. They're doing something they shouldn't be doing, and they know it, but and the whole movie hinges on that, and then a whole calamity ensues. That's dharma, the opposite of dharma. So dharma is your purpose, living and sticking by it, and let the chips fall where they may.
Wow. How many people don't follow that role in life? I mean, I think a high percentage.
In the first book, I talk about that this is in us. It is our software. It's our program. So people who are generally self-aware, they get who they are. But books like mine are tools to kind of help them go, hey, this, you should be looking over here. So if you're very self-aware and you're in touch, you may not need a book like Sex, Love, and Dharma or the 5 Dharma Types. But for the rest of us, myself included, I had to research this to really find out what my purpose was. I didn't know what I was doing. And so these books came about as a result of about 10 years of research. It's tough, especially in today's world where right now I could walk out the door and go to real estate school. I could go to mechanical engineering. I could go to massage. I could become anything because we have opportunities in the West. But we have choice, but which choice is right for me is the question. And I think this question is ever more pertinent today.
Do you get into any of the mysteries in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita? There's some weird stuff in there too. I mean, the ancient history that's in there, or the stuff that they talk about, is pretty crazy. It's pretty wild.
Well, I'm not sure which specific mysteries you're referring to, but in the Bhagavad Gita,
they talk about ancient technologies and crafts that were flying and all sorts of stuff. I've had Michael Cremo on a few times. I don't know if you know Michael Cremo's work.
Yeah, sure,
yeah.
So you're referencing Vimana and the fact that the technology was there to fly through space silently in a space chariot. It talks about that stuff, and modern scholars tend to sort of gloss over that as sort of a myth, but it's there. The stuff is there. That's why I said that the Vedic writings have really preserved a lot, because the Vedic tradition is an oral tradition, and that means that if you were to learn a text, you had to be able to recite it backwards and forwards, like the bards in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Right?
Yeah, they learn to learn their poems, or which Hillary's actually been privy to recently. I've been reading some Irish mythology poems and readings, and to be the bard, they were specially chosen so that they could do it. It was a special role,
and it had to be your dharma. So they would put you through some of your stuff. You could lie down and then have to still recite, to prove that you had the physical capacity. Mm-hmm. And then, there were other tests to show that you were spiritually capable of understanding everything that you were saying. And then there were other tests to show, would you be alive on the planet long enough that you were healthy enough to transmit this knowledge. So it wasn't an easy thing. And the same thing in the Vedic tradition. If I said, chapter 5, verse 8, give me the meaning, you should be able to recall that in an instant, recite the verse, and give a full exposition on it. So for that reason, they didn't rely on manuscripts, you see. They didn't rely on leaves that can be corrupted. The transmission mechanism was the human being.
Wonderful.
And human beings have an expiration date as well, but, they presumably they last a little bit longer than books, especially in South India where it's always humid and stuff corrupts. So
Sure.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry, but
No, and another thing, I believe, I can't remember, I think it was a documentary I watched where they have a satellite of an ancient river, I can't remember the name of it, Saraswati
Saraswati or the Indus.
and they know that that's the one that's spoken about in the Vedic text. Yeah, the Sanskrit writings. That kind of tells you that it was a glacial river from, a distant epoch so far back that it pretty much throws these writings back into deep antiquity.
Well, yeah. So the Saraswati River dried up around 1500 BC. Dr. David Frawley has done a lot of research and exposition on that, in the myth, what he calls the myth of the Aryan invasion. So that dried up in 1500 BC. So these writings that talk about a flowing, flourishing river, I'm not exactly sure the date. I think 1500 BC is when it dried up. But well before then, those writings were talking about a very full flowing river.
Wow. I think it's all fascinating. I think the Sanskrit writings have a body of knowledge in there that, it came at the cost of a lot of preservation of this knowledge, which is what I want to draw attention to. Let's talk about the different types of Dharma then. How do we know which Dharma type we are?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are 5 basic types according to me. And in the Vedic tradition, there's really only 4. But they also talk about an outsider. And
Wow.
The idea of the outsider is, as you can see in my hand, there are 4 types which have a pretty established social role, and then the outsider goes the other direction. And so how do you know which type you are? There's an easy test in the book. It's a 10-question test. But to really, really know, you'd want to take a look at your Vedic life map, which is essentially your horoscope, because what I found is that you can find the person's Dharma type in the horoscope based on the date, time, and place that they were born.
Wow. How does the Vedic astrology differ from Eastern or Western astrology, for that matter? I mean, maybe give us some of the structure.
A lot of similarities. A good Vedic astrologer and a good Western astrologer should arrive at the same conclusions. The difference mainly is the sidereal zodiac versus the tropical zodiac. Sidereal means if Jupiter is in Leo, as it is now in terms of the constellation. So if you look up in the morning, you'll see Jupiter is in the sign of Leo. That's the sidereal zodiac. The tropical zodiac doesn't use the constellations in the sky. It uses a fixed date that says March 21st is the beginning of Aries, and we go from there, regardless of where Aries is in the sky. It doesn't matter. Both systems work in the hands of a skilled astrologer.
Wow. There is something majestic in the land of Ireland. This is known the world over. The Celtic Irish are descendants of the Tuatha De Danann, a mysterious, supernatural race of gods written about in ancient Irish Gaelic texts. This is the basis for all Irish mythology, and our megalithic ancestors are interlinked with these peoples. You have a chance to come and see these monuments and temples for yourself. The megalithic landscape is rich in the realms of myth, legend and wisdom. Come see all this on the most spectacular Sacred Sites tour in March 2016. This Sacred Sites and Equinox tour is not to be missed. Tour highlights include Grillen of Aillock Observatory, the Giant's Ring Henge and Dolmen, St. Patrick's Day Special at St. Patrick's Ancient Chair, March 17th, Knockmany Passage Tomb linked to the Queen Maeve with special access, Beemore Temple Complex, Dunluce Castle, the Giant's Causeway, Beltany Stone Circle, Kilclooney Dolmen, and the Loch Crew Equinox Event Alignment. Of course, we will see the famous tombs of Newgrange, Noth and Doth, also Fornox Rock Art and Shamanic Chamber, Tara Hill Complex, and we're going to finish at the Tua de Danan's origins in the northwest of Ireland at Carroll Keel, dated 3500 BC, and the famous Carrowmore 5000 BC complex. Check out all the full itinerary on the tours events page for more details at jamesswagger.com.
Rooms, right? And then you got the inner sanctum.
You can see where this was probably covered over. This overlap here. It would have corbel vaulted and overlapped this chamber here. So this would have had a covering. This would have had a covering, and this is all just backfilled to make the mound up, which has been reduced down to nearly ground level. How complex is the Vedic astrology? Because I hear people talk about it as being more complex than other. Maybe it's because people aren't used to it or something like that.
It's more complex because it's deeply intertwined with myth and the Vedic traditions of Vastu, which is feng shui, which Ayurveda. So, for example, if I look at a horoscope and I see that there is a problem with the person's love life, I might ask them, hey, what's in the southeast portion of your house? Is there a lot of clutter and junk there? And I've actually done this in readings, and people will say, well, yeah, that's where I throw where I store my stuff. And in Vedic astrology and cosmology, the southeast corner is ruled by Venus, the planet of love and romance. So if you want to encourage the flow of love and romance in your life, not a bad idea to keep your southeast corner of your bedroom and of your house in general, and even of the lot structure of where you live, clean, beautiful, well decorated, so that you can invite those energies into your house. So astrology is more complex because it integrates these other disciplines.
More holistic in a way.
Yeah.
Holistic, right. Well,
so
I used to
how did you get into doing relationship readings from your studies of Sanskrit?
Well, I'm no relationship expert, and in fact, I'm a relationship dunce myself. But the basic premise, there are two premises of this book, is that the first step to relationship health is health itself. So if you're waking up with bad breath and acne, and you're gassy and you're not feeling good, that's not very romantic. And so I make it a point in the book to go through specific things you can do to just improve your glow, your vitality, your your zest for life. And when that's there, then your relationships flourish. And I mean, and we've all seen, if you've watched movies, if you've seen the romantic comedies where they wake up in the morning and the couple just starts making out. And I look at that and go, wow, they must be really healthy, right? There's no bad breath. There's nothing putrefying in their gut to give them that sense of ick in the morning. Mm. So that's something we can live up to. So Hollywood, in a sense, gives us that ideal that, hey, this is what's possible. And Ayurveda, which is the healing science of ancient India, says, yeah, this is possible, and here's how you do it. And there's specific steps on how to get there.
Wow. I want to give a bit on each section, if you don't mind, Simon. So let's talk about sex and love. Well, sex, the laws of attraction. You talk about the woman as the laborer and the man as the warrior, for example. Let's go right in there.
Yeah. Well, this is the core, the ethic, the essence of it. So essentially, to attract the person who is right for you, first you have to know who you are. And earlier I said, we have so much choice. I can go out and be a salesperson. I can go out and be a librarian. But doing your dharma is the most attractive thing you can do. So for me, I'm a teacher. I have to be doing blah, blah, blah. And if I'm doing too much blah, 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 just stop me and interrupt me because I can't help it. And you're an ed, by the way, there are some ways you can tell what type of person is. Warriors tend to have large hands. They tend to look you in the eye and go, hey, that's bull. Or, yeah, okay, I agree with that. They have a directness about them.
Wow.
Educators have this quality where if people walk up to you, you could be at the bus stop, and they'll just start telling you their story. Because there's something, I guess, I don't know, harmless about us. We're non-threatening in some way. Anyway, so back to this idea, what's most attractive is, number one, do your dharma. Whether you're a man or a woman, find your purpose in life and do it. Because people, both men and women, gravitate around someone who is in the flow of their dharma, in the flow of the river of their life. It's attractive. People will follow that person. Number two, all men, in an emergency situation or from the point of view of evolutionary biology, all men have this core archetype of being the warrior. There's a mouse in the room, the guy's got to go stomp on it or find it. And all women, and this is going to sound weird until I really explain what it means,
sure.
All women have the laborer archetype. And because the laborer is the foundation of society. Laborers build the structure. Oprah Winfrey is a laborer type. She creates a community around her. She has the gravitas to anchor people around her and support. So the laborer type, genetically, fundamentally, archetypally, all women have this role of the laborer and men have the role of a warrior. So what does a warrior do? So if you're a man, you're single and you want to attract the right person in your life, a warrior protects those who can't protect themselves. So Hillary, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but are women attracted to someone who is chivalrous or doing something for those who can't help themselves? Even if it's, let's say I play guitar, but I go into the inner city and teach kids how to play guitar. In a sense, giving them something that they couldn't get if I weren't there.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I've seen women friends of mine be attracted to that. It's that selflessness attribute. Mm-hmm. I'm going to help people. I'm going to do something beyond just for myself. And I think that's what women are attracted to mostly. So
that's one of the qualities of a warrior, and the ability to take a bullet for someone else. That's to protect others. The second quality is to be firm and strong. So even when the world is yelling at you or your partner is yelling at you, you don't run. Running is a sign of weakness. You stand and you say, okay, honey, I understand. And you lean back a little bit and you go, okay. but the fact that you have presence and you're holding space, that's very important. So if you're a guy, and of course there's many self-help books and relationship books that sort of talk about this, but I boil it down to this core essence that when you understand what it is to be a warrior, to be firm in your purpose, to hold fast, there's a certain posture associated with that too. Warriors have very good posture. I'm sitting down now, you can't see it, but they're erect, so to speak, right? Pun intended. Sure. They're strong. If you're like, well, will you go on a date with me? I really like, oh, that's not attractive. Hey, I'm going to the movies tomorrow. You should join me, right? There's a sense of, oh, okay, maybe I will join you, right? The confidence, I guess, is the word. And warriors have that in spades. Yeah.
I guess the thing to point out there too is that it's the confidence is a byproduct of that dharma. It's not that you're trying to be confident. You're being the warrior is the best thing to do, because I see other guys try to be confident when they're not, and they just mix up what that is.
And women can tell the difference when someone's faking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just see it as either cockiness or arrogance.
Men can see the difference when women are faking it, right, guys?
And sometimes you
can tell when women are not.
Yeah, but we don't care as much because we're not looking for warriors. Men are looking for a laborer archetype, and laborers have a different pro forma. So I come at it from the point of view of being a man and having struggled with this in my life. From the other point of view, biologically, men are looking for more physical signals in a woman, and women are looking for not necessarily just physical signals in a man. If a man is funny, if he's eloquent, if he's socially acceptable, means he's got a good job, makes money. If he has other traits, very intelligent, all those are proofs of strength. So they're good qualities. For a man, we're more basic. The switch is either on or off. So
where does love come into that formula?
Yeah, good question.
Doing all that. Sometimes they're not necessarily balanced in the love department. The authentic heart to heart, right?
Yeah.
So how does that work? Tell me about that.
So love is a mystery. Love is what transcends the biological imperative. So what we've been talking about here, in part, is these biological drives to drive males and females together. Love is something that we as humans have that transcends the biological imperative, and yet we're all still working on it, because as a mother, you love your children, but you don't love everyone's children. So how spiritual is that love? It's still a sort of biological love mixed with some higher love. If you truly loved, like the saints of the world, then you would love everyone's children, and you couldn't, you wouldn't want to see them harmed as much as you'd want your own children harmed. When it comes to a man and a woman, in the book, I talk a lot about biological love, and then we go on to transcendent love. And real love between a man and a woman is understanding the Shiva and Shakti. These are terms from Sanskrit that talk about the divine masculine and the divine feminine and what their roles are. And when you see your partner as, Shakti is like Shekinah in Hebrew. Shekinah is the Hebrew word for it. It's the divine immanence of God, the radiant quality. So women embody that. So David Data, who's written a lot of books on this, talks about this idea that's why even when you advertise hair products or things, everything has to be shiny. It has to be, lustrous and luxurious, because that's a quality of Shakti. So when I relate to my beloved, I see her as an embodiment of the divine feminine, and she sees me as an embodiment of the divine masculine. And then that's the point at which we start our relationship. So how do you cultivate that? Is you try to understand what the qualities of the divine feminine are in the divine masculine, and you sort of begin to work up to them. I don't know if this is making sense.
No, totally.
Yeah. So what are those qualities? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, again, this is the divine feminine has the qualities of the laborer type, which is the nurturer. and I hate to say this, but it's that quality of, I love you. I may not love what you do, but I love you. So if your husband or boyfriend is coming home late, is being, unresponsive, or is being even abusive, you still open your heart with love towards that person. And your heart is open like this, and you hold that open, loving space, and you say, I'm loving you, and the actions that you're doing towards me, I don't like. I love who you are. However, if those actions don't change, they are not at the level of where my love is. So you need to come up. And if you don't come up, then this relationship isn't going to work. So a woman, in a sense, helps the man to grow, because, if I'm being a jerk, if I'm being a dick to somebody, and they constantly open their arms in love, in real love, I can't be a jerk for too long, because it just melts. And believe it or not, the power of love melts the most frozen person. So I liken the laborer type and the female archetype as the black hole. But what is a black hole? It is all light. It is so powerful with light that you can't see it. So the black hole attracts everything to it, and eventually, if you get within that event horizon, you fall into it. So a woman really in touch with her Shakti becomes irresistible, and it comes from the power of love and openness. And how to cultivate that, I talk about some steps for that in my book. And a lot of it depends on our initiations as teenagers. So girls have their own initiation. Men, we have our own initiation procedures that help us get in touch with our warrior nature. The nature quest, the walkabout, the different traditions that every culture around the planet has to test boys and to turn boys into men, to help them step up. And women have their own different initiations. But for women, it's a little more simple, because the onset of menstruation is a marker of maturity. For men, we don't have that. So we have to go and drink, test ourselves in different ways, doing dangerous stuff, go to fraternities, and we sort of act out to try to, it's in us. That's the impulse, is I want to prove that I'm not a boy anymore.
Sure.
And ancient societies develop structures to help
the process.
The guys become the men they're supposed to be. But so I talk about some of those steps in the book, but ultimately a woman has the power of Shakti and love and radiance that is just all attractive. It melts everything around her.
Wow. You talk about self-tests to determine the Dharma type. Tell us a little bit about that, about diet and exercise and detox and all that as well.
Yeah, so once you know your Dharma type, once you know who you are, there's a whole list of things that fall into place, like what type of diet should I follow? What type of exercise regimen is best for me? What type of job? And, if you're an outsider, you're always going to be pushing the edge. So you're going to try different cuisine. You're going to wear different clothes. You're going to have an earring. You're going to have tattoos. You might have different hairstyle, because your dharma, your purpose is to innovate, to create something new in the world. And so many of us are outsiders here. And James, I suspect you might be an outsider because you are broaching new material. You're helping to educate people on the edge, the cutting edge stuff.
I think you might be right with that one, Simon. I've been an outsider most of my life,
you
brother.
on that one, Simon.
Yeah, okay. So here's three things we can say about an outsider. Number one is, as important as air and water is freedom for them. If I sat you down in a desk and said, I'm going to give you a bunch of money on you, but you have to do this, you can't do that, that might work for a little while, but it's a long-term recipe for disaster. Okay?
I had a very situation growing up in my teens to describe exactly that situation, where I had money laid on the table and I went, no, I lose my freedom.
Because you feel like you're dying inside.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like when you're not doing your dharma, and you know it.
Yeah.
So freedom is number one. The second thing is, outsiders can wear many hats. So they can walk into the boardroom and they know how to speak the business language, or they can walk into the hippie circle and they fit right in.
Did you read my bio before you came on the show?
No, I
I'm
don't
joking.
I haven't read your bio.
It's not on the bio.
Get after the show.
Well, once you know the Dharma type, you believe it or not, and I used to tell this to my friends when we're even sitting in the metro, I would say that person's an educator, and I'm going to tell you some facts about that person's life, and then later we'd kind of start a conversation with them and kind of prove it. You can tell a lot about people, not superficial things, but deep things. So the second thing is they wear many hats. The third thing is that after all the freedom and exploration in life, there comes a time, sometime in middle age, when every outsider decides or has to decide, okay, I've studied all these various wide different things. How can I synthesize and do what I call in the book, share your unique expression? I call it the unique expression. You might call it something else, but it's usually a fusion of all of these different things that you've done and then sharing that with the world and creating something new.
Wow, I'm blown away by the way, Simon, at the moment.
Yeah,
I'm
me
blown
too.
away.
Does that make sense?
Oh, well, you've no idea. You've no idea.
Yeah.
And
That's where I'm at right now, brother. That's where I'm at right now.
And the thing is, that never stops. So once you share that unique expression, and some outsiders just rest on their laurels. So you have, I don't know, you have Bikram Yoga. He created something new. He took yoga, he turned up the temperature, put a trademark on it, boom, and great. And what have you done since then? So and that's not supposed to be a slight, but the question is, you continue, and that's how you scour yourself. Look, Jesus was an outsider. Jesus took the fundamental teachings of Judaism and he went into the church, turned over the tables. He looked the priest in the eye and he said, prostitutes and tax collectors are going to heaven before you because you're a hypocrite. Like, he completely changed the system, and he said, and this is available to the Romans, this is available to their slaves, this is available to everyone. So he took something that already existed, he changed it, or he tweaked it, and then he presented it to the world. So outsiders, this is your role. James,
Wow.
You have to be Jesus.
I hear you, brother.
You're Jesus.
I hear you, brother. No, that makes so much sense, Simon. And just to give you a bit of background, like, I mean, my father threw some money at me when I was younger, and I came with a lot of, criteria, and I went, that will just impede my freedom, And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'll go and do it my own way. And I went the hard way, and I went along in a hard way.
And the problem's not the money; it's the criteria.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, trust me, I would have wanted to go and do uni and do this. And I went, no, I'll do it my own way, and just put my hand out. And he respected me for it. However, and like I say, I went on this long course, and now I'm synthesizing all the things I've done. I started off as a low-level engineer. I worked my way up to a systems analyst. I got 2 degrees, 2 masters, and now I've ditched everything I've done. And I've worked in electrical, electronics, mechanical, wind farms and renewable energies. I just ditched all that, and I'm studying like the history of civilizations. I wrote a book on ancient astronomy, and I'm now doing radio shows and podcasts and doing a documentary. I'm synthesizing everything that I've learned.
Sharing information with the world.
So it's like, you just summarized my last 20 years. It's awesome.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing, is that you are doing your dharma, and there's a sense of you can't buy that feeling. You can't buy that feeling you can't get it from a drug or from anything, because it's like you're riding the wave.
But I knew, and here's the thing, and I've shared this with Hillary, and Hillary will be privy to this, is that I knew when I was younger, I had to go out in the field to do stuff. In other words, I had to go and be myself. And I knew I wasn't able to go and do what I wanted to do because I hadn't got the skill set. And I talk about that. I didn't have the skill set when I was 20. I wanted to be a writer and an author, but I just didn't have it. And I said, you know what? I'm good at math. I'm good at engineering. I'll do my vocation for the next 10 years, and I'll learn a skill set of, all these things that I still have an interest in and I'm still good at it. But I'll bide my time until I want to grow in a different direction. And I did that. So I went out into life to find the skill set, knowing that it would be another 10 years before I'm actually finding myself. I was already to witness that when I was 20.
The thing is, the thing that, let's say you and I had a conversation and I knew about this stuff 20 years ago, I would say everything that you're doing, including the engineering work, will be relevant to you. in some way. Either it will shape your mind in such a way that it'll allow you to analyze information, but it's part of you. So nothing is irrelevant in the outsider's journey, even though it may seem that way. Oh, that Thai boxing that I used to do in my 20s, that's not relevant to my life. Yes, it is, because it shaped you in a certain way to that you are who you are now. So nothing is everything has a function.
And it kind of comes back to the book and what we're talking about is that I worked in all the different types of systems because I got very bored very quick as well. And I didn't want to be in this one dead end role where I couldn't grow or couldn't do things. So I worked on as many different types of systems, and I chased my CV instead of chasing the money. I had big jobs as engineers, and I could have took a better job. And I went, no, I haven't worked on this type of system, and I haven't worked on this type of system. So I would go on wind farms or power stations or water treatments or as many different types of variety. Variety was what I was looking for, because I knew within the variety I was learning a new system, and I elevated myself to a computer-aided engineer, systems analyst, where I worked on the most automated place in Britain at one point in my life. It was a 5 square kilometer plant, and when it broke down, I plugged in a laptop to fix it. And I was like looking at code and stuff, like it was crazy. And I loved the complexity of it. And when I got to that stage, I realized, I said to myself, I'm not going to learn anymore here. I'm done on the learning because it doesn't get any bigger than this.
You'd love astrology, man.
Well, I do astrology. Hence, you see the astrology behind me. But I do that as well. But I'm not an expert in it. And I'm mostly on sun sign astrology, and I'm not the greatest. I looked at it from a holistic point. I read a lot of psychology books as well, and I like what we're talking about here because there's psychology in this too. And I see that as a system. And as a systems analyst, I see this working. I see this as a system of knowledge that works and it's practical. And it's usable for people. And like you say, you spot the educator or you spot the outsider because of either traits or something that's in them. It's who they are. It's like the psychology, you have the Enneagram, where you have 9 personality types. Very like that.
And the Enneagram is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So how do you tell the difference between all this and your soulmate when you meet somebody and you got the click? Talk to us a little bit as we come to the end of the hour about the soulmate phenomenon. A lot of people seem to have different ideas about what that is, and how do you see it?
Well, there are basically 2 views. The first view is that you have one soulmate for life, and that's the person, and if you don't find them, too bad. The other view is that everyone in your life at the moment is a soulmate. And in Vedic thought, you attract people with whom you have some bandha, some karma with. And so in that sense, they're your soulmate for that little bunch of time. So if you're not living your dharma, you're in a bad place, you're going to attract people who reflect that for you, and it's not going to feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. That's why I say live your dharma, and you will attract people who meet you at that level. And then you have more of the pleasant soulmate phenomenon. So, this is something, again, I talk about in the book. I don't know ultimately the answer. Is there one soulmate for life? Or I'm more of the school that everyone in your life at the moment is your teacher. And, there are a lot of couples who live together for 20, 30 years, and then one of them dies. And often sometimes what will happen is the other partner will also die just because that was their soulmate and that's it. But just as often, the one partner lives on and they find someone else. And they find someone else with whom to share a different part of their existence. They'll never be the other partner, but they go on and find, a way to keep living and keep growing and evolving. So I'm of the theory that, now, of course, guys are going to be like, well, baby, you're my soulmate for this week, but next week I got someone else.
So what's that? Talk about it for a second. What is that?
I might be fueling here some
it's okay.
some bad tendencies, but the idea of the soulmate is to be conscious. Well, that's why marriage was invented, because it is a spiritual bond between 2 people, and says, listen, this person, you have, and that's why the horoscopes are checked, by the way, in India. So before anyone gets married, you always check their Dharma type, you check their horoscope, is there compatibility? Look, Romeo and Juliet were compatible, but they weren't socially compatible. So you have to check for that too. When you get married, is your relationship going to enhance both of you in the eyes of society or depress both of you? There's so many factors. Are you both going to grow financially? Where your health suffers? Some couples very compatible, say sexually, emotionally, but just when they're together, they're just sick all the time. They just can't get that, taken care of. So in India, the best policy is check the horoscopes before you get married. And that's that way you see, okay, is there a bond for life? And if there is, you unify them, you do a whole spiritual ritual to make sure that they're both going to evolve within the crucible of this relationship, and good luck. Wow. In these days, part of the reason divorce rates are so high is because we see compatibility. Oh, wow, we have great emotional compatibility. The sex is awesome, and we can talk to each other. Great. And so we get married. And then, 2 years from now, we realize that we can't have kids, or that socially our parents don't approve, and so it's a major bummer. And there's a whole host of other problems that crop up. So the whole soulmate phenomenon, it can be a little complex, but Romeo and Juliet were soulmates, and yet tragic soulmates. So how do you know? Well, a little bit of selfish self-promotion, buy the book. Other than that, and it's, by the way, it's not all in the book. How you know, again, is a mystery. Yeah, sex, love, and Dharma. But the essence is it begins with Dharma. If you're doing your purpose and you're committed to living your purpose, James, in your case, in being the avant-garde, being the innovator, being the hunter for mysteries and sharing that with the world, then you will attract the right people in your life. Hillary, have you taken the test? Do you know your Dharma type?
No.
Well, judging from what we've been talking about so far, even though I haven't described the types, what type resonates with you?
Why don't you tell me what type I am?
It's hard to tell. You might be a warrior, I think. There are qualities of a warrior, but you might be an educator as well. Sometimes I can tell just from the physiology, but sometimes I can't because the Dharma type is deep inside you. I'm 6'4" and a burly guy. I look like something else, but I'm an educator. So let me see your hands. Go like this. Yeah, I think you might be.
Hillary has the same size hands as I do, and I'm 6'2".
Yeah. I think Hillary might be a warrior, which means not a fan of BS.
I have literature to prove that.
I actually wrote that exact statement.
You actually wrote that exact statement.
Which statement?
I'm not a fan of BS.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So they suffer fools lightly. And they don't suffer fools lightly, I should say. So warriors have to find their just cause. This is it. This is the big thing in your life. When you anchor yourself, whether you're a single mom protecting your kids and that's your cause, or you're fighting for the rights of the whales in the ocean, it doesn't matter. You find a just cause and you anchor yourself to it, and that gives your life purpose. Because Hillary, you are like a Ferrari. Sometimes without a steering wheel, in the sense that you have a powerful engine, you can focus your energy, but knowing where to focus it is the key. And so being a warrior is a very cool thing. You can tell people what to do. Being a warrior allows you to use this finger. Hey, you. Go over there. You need to do this, that. There's a sense of being a natural leader when you really integrate your warrior qualities.
Hillary, I like this guy. We gotta get this guy back.
Yeah, I know.
Last question, Simon. I know we're going to cut short in a minute. Let's tie it up. A conclusion, probably question. What do you hope the readers to get from this? Give us a quick summary.
We didn't get to talk about gold. That was
we've got about 3 minutes. Give me what you told me about gold before we started the show. This is important.
Okay, so what they were supposed to get from the book is live your Dharma, leave the details to the universe. That's it. Because Dharma erases karma.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Dharma erases karma. That's
Dharma
great.
erases
Great
karma.
end. Yeah.
So whatever karma you have, or whatever karma you might create by not being your authentic self, all that goes away, and you get to sort of dance between the raindrops of your karma and stay dry. So we were talking before the show that I saw the show about monoatomic gold. I talk about gold in this book as, well, I was just kind of joking, but as the ancients saw gold as solidified light, solidified sunlight. And it in a sense, it represents spirituality, which is why kings wear these gold crowns. The gold crown is the physical correlate to the saint's halo. So, you know how saints are represented as having this halo? Mm-hmm. If you've been around a real saint in moments when they are being saintly, that is, when they're allowing their light to shine, there is a sort of a subtle luminance that comes from them, and it's palpable. And for a king, the gold crown is a way of saying it's solidified halo. It's a way of saying that this person has the divine right to rule, in a sense, because they are favored of God, in a sense, because they have this divine light around them. So gold has these mythical properties, and gold, when taken internally, in a certain form, of course, not in the crude form because it's toxic, as most heavy metals are, but taken internally in a very subtle way, has the ability to create this light within you as well. It's good for the heart, good for reproductive issues, and so on. And I give a recipe in the book. The reason kings and queens drank from golden chalices was because when you put water in gold, a little tiny, maybe a homeopathic quantity of its atoms will suffuse into the water, and you will get some of that essence. Wow. And I talk about boiling gold and silver and making your own water in the book. So that was that whole thing. That's
awesome, brother. Listen, I just want you to give before we wrap things up, I want you to give the website out before you go. And I believe you got a speaking event at the Omega Institute in New York. Tell the audience about that as well, please, Simon.
Well, I'm going to visit Hillary. So
New York.
I'm going to visit Hillary in Rhinebeck, New York. Actually, no, at the Omega Institute in May. I think it's May 17th through the 25th, something like that. Or the 19th through the 25th. It's a 5-day event where we'll be immersing ourselves in not just the Dharma types, but how to fix your home to optimize it for prosperity, love, and happiness and health. How to look at your own horoscope and find out what your major roadblocks are, where your karma is, and where your talents lie, and how to learn your Dharma type and for example, know how to discipline your kids. If you have a warrior child and an outsider child, you have to discipline them each very differently. The outsider child is going to want freedom to accomplish all the chores they need to do, but within their own framework. The warrior is going to need a very different kind of structure. So we talk about all that stuff. That's at the Omega in New York in May. Other than that, they can visit my website, spirittype.com. And there's a lot of free information there. They can check it out. And it's about to be revamped here in a few weeks, so it'll have a totally new look. But it's still pretty useful.
Yeah, just some great information there. Spirittype.com. Today's author is Simon Chokoisky, and the author of the book Sex, Love and Dharma. Simon, it's an absolute pleasure talking today. Got a lot out of it today, Simon. I really did.
Simon, this is great.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you guys, and best of luck.
Thank you, brother.
See you in New York.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
See you in New York.